and welcome to Brand Your Passion, the show that helps you turn the thing you love the most into something that people know and love you for. I'm your host, Holly Arnett, the brand coach for creatives, and I'm on a mission to make the world a more creative place, one brand at a time. If you're ready to get more eyes on your work, more dollars in your pocket, and more creativity in your life, you're in the right place. Welcome. Let's brand your passion. Hey everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Brand Your Passion. I'm super excited today because I'm joined by my wonderful friend Fem. Welcome to the show, Fem.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell the people what it is that you do?
Yes. So hello, everybody. My name is Fem and I'm a product designer. I actually work full time as a product designer at Uber Eats, and I am based in Toronto, Canada, though I am a Kiwi, so I do hail from New Zealand. And I've been working at Uber for a few years now, but on the side, I have quite a few side projects. So I have a podcast called Design Life FM that I run with a co-host of mine, Charlie, who I think has been on this podcast with you already, Holly, right?
Yeah, she has.
Awesome. So yeah, I have a podcast with her. We talk about design and side projects. And then I also have a YouTube channel called Femke.design. And there I teach a lot about product design and user research. So really helping give back and help the next generation of designers launch their design career.
Amazing. Just a few things.
Just a couple of things on the side. No big deal.
Just a couple of projects. I love that so much. And I love that you're creative in so many different ways, right? You're creative in the design, obviously, that you do, and then also in creating podcast episodes and YouTube videos and all of that. So much creativity that goes into all of that. Have you always kind of identified as a creative? Like as a kid, were you creative?
Yeah, I think as a kid, I was creative in a very different way. I guess now as a designer, I'm very creative visually. As a child, I was very musical. So I did a lot of performing arts and I played the violin for a really, really long time. So my creativity was manifested in a different way. I wasn't that kid in art class. In fact, I never took art as a subject. It wasn't like I was drawing or doodling here and there. So I think I've always had that creative bone in my body, but it's manifested in different ways throughout my life. And I feel like there might be a chance in the future that it might manifest in another way. I don't know if I'll be like a visual designer forever. Maybe eventually I'll use that creativity in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I love that there are so many ways that creativity does kind of come out. And I totally resonate in the I feel like I could have so many different creative lives, if that makes sense. I'm like, I'm doing branding and that's my jam and I do podcasts and stuff. But I used to do singing and I'm that could be a creative thing that I do in my life. Or maybe one day I'm an author or there's just so many ways that you could be creative. So I 100% feel that. I wish I had 9 lives like a cat that I could do all the different creative outputs.
Yeah. And isn't it funny? Because I feel like when you're growing up as a child, you have this assumption that you need to choose one thing and stick with it forever, right?
Yeah.
And I really felt early on that was going to be music. I was going to go to music school and become a professional classical violinist. That for a while was what I thought the path was going to be for me. And yeah, I think it's cool that we can change it and mix it up and that creativity can come in different ways and change and evolve over time. So we'll see where mine eventually goes.
100%. I wish I could play an instrument. I'm always in so people who play instruments or do moving image stuff or animation or video. I'm so in awe of all of those people because my brain just doesn't work that way and I can't do it. So I'm you play the violin. That's amazing. I love that. And I just did a podcast interview with Debbie Millman and she is 60. She's turning 60. And she was talking about how so many of us are in our 20s, right? Freaking out about getting everything right now. But she was saying kind of a similar thing. It's taken her to 60 to kind of realize oh, actually this is who I am. And now I can focus on just doing that one thing that I love. Whereas it's like we're all freaking out at 27 or 30 being like, oh my God. Or even as kids, like you said.
Totally. Yeah. I love that perspective. And I'm looking forward to being 60, and like what the possibilities and the opportunities will be in 30 years from now is like kind of exciting. And I'm trying to let go of that pressure of like feeling like I need to have everything figured out by the time I'm 30, because it's not a healthy mindset to have all the time. And, obviously you want to enjoy your 20s, but you also want to like achieve something and like work hard and enjoy life at the same time. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to just doing that throughout my life in different periods and not feeling like I have to do all of it right now.
Yeah, totally. Debbie's, one of the quotes she said was that she hopes that the best day of her life, like the peak of her life, is the day before she dies. And I was like, heck yes, I love that. Like just keeps getting better and better rather than like peaking at 20 and then being like, oh, okay, well, now what do I do?
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. So you just said that you were like doing music. You thought that was what you wanted to do. So how on earth did you get from music to where you are now? Obviously that's like a bit of a journey, but tell me a little bit of an overview of how you've gotten from, being a violinist to being a product designer.
Yeah, I guess TLDR, I went to university and got a bachelor in commerce. I think at the time, like music was a real hobby and a real passion of mine. I started doing violin when I was 3 years old. So I like literally didn't know any other life without it. And I guess I was kind of curious to try something else and try something different. And also, going and doing a degree in commerce and business sounded like a safe thing to do at the time. And so that's what I did, thinking that I would major in marketing and that would kind of be my creative sliver within a business degree. I was really interested in like maybe going into advertising and working at agencies and like this kind of world of like creative marketing. And so I did the business degree, I majored in marketing, and I remember literally sitting in my final class of university. This is 3 years of university. And the lecturer put up on the slides like, cool, now you're graduating with like this marketing major. Here's the jobs you can go out and get. There was like a list of all these like kind of boring businessy jobs. And then there was like one on the list that was like designer. And it was like crossed out with like this, it was like with this caveat of like, well, you could go and, do design, but the caveat is you will need a design degree. And I remember thinking like, wow, I sat in this class for 3 years to find out on the last day that the thing I actually want to do requires a different degree. And so that was kind of a moment of like, oh, okay. I realized what I was actually interested in was the creative side of marketing and like the physical aspect of designing something. And so that's when I decided that I would need to figure out how to become a designer after graduating with this business degree. And I didn't want to go back and do another degree. So I ended up doing a graduate diploma part-time in visual communication design, which, as you know, we did that. I was in some of your classes at Massey University doing that part-time. And so, that's ultimately how I ended up becoming a designer.
Amazing. And so you went back to uni to do that year of design school. Obviously there are like many people who always discuss like, should I go to school for design? Should I try and learn it myself? Should I find some online courses? So what are your thoughts? I know you've probably discussed this a lot on your podcast, but what are your thoughts on like going to design school? Do you think it was worth it for you to go back for that year? Tell me a little bit about your thoughts.
I think for me, it was worth it because I didn't know enough or didn't have the discipline to like self-teach myself at that time in my life. And so for me, it was good to have that structure and that like learning and, courses and projects with deadlines that I had to work on. So that was great for me. I also got to dabble in different like design disciplines, right? There are some classes on print design, some on branding, some on like more UX stuff. So I really liked that, and that learning style fit well with how I wanted to learn. The advice that I give now today to other people is more around like think about what your goal is and the different ways you could get to that goal. Because there's a lot of different paths you could take these days, right?
Yeah.
Like we're also talking here, this is like 2013 when I was doing this, which is like crazy to think it's almost a decade ago. I think like things have moved so fast and there's so many different ways now to learn and get that design education. You can self-teach, you can take a course online, you can do a boot camp is really popular in a lot of places now. And so I think there's no right path, right? It's really up to you and what suits your learning style. What is the kind of experience you want to get? Think about that end goal, which probably looks something like, I want to have a portfolio with projects ready to go to apply for a job. And so maybe is freelancing going to be the best way to get that work experience to go on your portfolio? Is going to a boot camp, doing a design degree? It can vary, I think, depending on the person. So think about what your goal is and what would be the best path for you to get there.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. And I know like, you know, even in our year at uni, there were people who like me who are freaking nerds and like loved it. And that was like, that's where I thrive in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
But there are people who like didn't love it as much, right? And maybe could have benefited from like doing a different style of learning.
Yeah.
Or I remember in first year, people got there because I did the full 4 years. People in our first year got there and kind of was like, oh yeah, I think I want to do design. Got there, realized what uni is like.
And it's like, this is not for me.
Oh, snap. Yeah, totally. So I really love that advice of like, yeah, think about where you want to go and the many, many different ways you can get there. That's awesome. How did you kind of shift? Like, I'm not sure if you were kind of online at that stage before when you were doing marketing, but how did you kind of shift, I guess, your personal brand or your reputation or CV kind of to being more known as someone who does design and then obviously going down into doing product design? What was that kind of journey like for you?
Yeah. So this started, I guess, in 2015, which is about when I graduated. And I was working part-time for a startup. The startup was working on a design tool. So it was kind of in the design space, but I wasn't working there as a designer at that stage. And so I like had this goal to like work as a designer at the company. And I knew that I needed to get some more like real world practical design experience, particularly because at this time I was interested in the like UX-y product design world. And at Massey, a lot of the classes were more like branding, graphic design. So I felt like there was a little bit of a gap that I needed to fulfill to get the right experience. So yeah, I started to freelance a little bit at this stage and I created or founded, that doesn't feel like the right word because founded feels so official, but like I just started this like kind of agency of one of just myself doing part-time freelance work on the side. It was called The Apartment. And I just started getting like freelance gigs for projects through friends, through like people I knew online. They were really small projects, like nothing super flashy, but it got my feet wet into what like UX design could be and learning about product design kind of on the job, quote unquote. So through that, that's really when I started my personal brand because to find the clients, I needed to have some sort of online presence. And so that's when I started to like blog about design a little bit. I started an email newsletter where I would talk about design and not only just design, but also like life as a creative and like things I was struggling with, like imposter syndrome or like making trade-offs between different decisions and like, how do you have confidence in your work, things like that. And so that's kind of how it started. And it started to kind of grow a little bit from there to the point where I eventually had enough kind of UX projects and experience to put together a portfolio. And that's when I started applying for UX jobs. And it's actually kind of funny. The job that I got at Uber, they actually found me through my email newsletter. So like kind of through my personal brand, like one of the designers at Uber had, I guess, subscribed to my newsletter at some point, and then they reached out to me to talk about a job opportunity. So it's kind of amazing how like to think back that if I didn't start this little personal brand, I might not even have the job that I have today.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so cool. And like when you started that email newsletter, like I'm sure there was a little bit of an element of like, I hope this helps me to, grow my career and like get me where I want to go. But I'm sure you had no idea that like someone from Uber was going to subscribe to your email list and that's how you would get your job. Like that's incredible. I love that.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And like this was kind of around the same time Charlie and I started the Design Life podcast too, where like we wanted to document our journey and our careers in design. And so I think doing the podcast, the email newsletter, some blogging, like naturally I started to create this online presence. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of the messaging I see today is like, you should start a personal brand. Here's why. And it's funny because when I think about how I started mine, it was a lot more organic, where it wasn't like I was like, I'm going to start a personal brand now. It was more like I started with the content and the values and the things I wanted to teach or the things that I was learning and like giving that away. And then like my personal brand grew on top of that foundation as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting, I guess, place that we're in where people are like, I'm gonna intentionally try and like start a personal brand now. Whereas, I think there's the same, like when I started doing blogging and stuff, like I was just documenting my life at uni and like being a design student, right? I was like, one, I'm doing this so I can look back and like watch these videos of me being at uni and being this embarrassing little creative person. But also I want to like share these experiences with other people who are like deciding if they want to go to uni or like are in uni and want to feel like they're not alone, right? And it's the same thing. It just grew on top of that, which is an interesting way to like look back and think about how that's changed.
Totally. Yeah. And all the opportunities that's provided you with over the years as well. I'm very grateful for that too.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. And so I'm interested in like, so you have this full-time job now with these side hustles that you do on the side. So what is it that made you decide that like, okay, I don't want to freelance full-time. I don't want to do these like side hustles full-time. What was that decision-making process like? Because I guess there are, a lot of people are like, well, I want to do my own business full-time. But then I'm sure there are like so many people who are in the same position as you. My partner's one of them. He's like, I don't want to do my my passion thingies full time. I want to have like a full-time job and then I want to come home and do these creative things I love to do. So tell me about your, I guess, decision-making process, if there was any specific process behind that. Yeah.
So I think initially it was that I knew that I had still more to learn and grow on my own. And I felt like getting a full-time job was the best way for me to get that at the time. So that's why I like started looking for a full-time job as like a UX product designer. And I took the role at Uber because I was like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. I'm probably going to learn so much quicker than I could ever try and learn on my own freelancing. Yeah. And at that time, I hadn't really worked yet full-time as a designer. So I was really craving that like mentorship, like learning from others in a team, like that real world experience of working in a company as a designer, the impact that could have, and like everything I would learn that would come across with it. So that's why I took the job back then. And then now it's like almost 4 years later and my side projects are doing pretty well. Not only are they like growing and I have a really engaging audience, but I'm also at a point now where I'm making some decent side income from it to the point where like, people have started asking me, are you going to take that full time? Like it's at the tipping, it's kind of at a tipping point now where if I wanted to, I probably could from a financial perspective. And the reason I'm not doing that is that I think there's several reasons. I still feel like I have a lot to learn, like as a designer, and I don't want to give up designing full time. Freelancing is not really something that interests me. I prefer to be embedded on a team and like working towards a common goal, a common mission, and like playing the long game and not jumping from project to project. And so I guess I feel like I still have something to give or I'm not yet satisfied with the impact I've made. I think there's more I can learn, more to grow. And I think in addition to that, because my content, my side projects are very connected to my job too, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who have side projects that are very different from their day job. But I work as a designer. My side projects are about design. So a lot of the stuff I do in my day job kind of fuels the side projects in a way. Yeah. And I suppose a little bit of me is worried that if I stopped the day job, I wouldn't have ideas for content anymore because I wouldn't be experiencing it anymore. I'm sure that's probably not true, but yeah, something about like having the security of the job gives me the ideas and the content for my side projects a lot of the time. And yeah, I don't know. I enjoy too, I guess similar to your boyfriend, like having that fun passion project that I don't need to rely on as like an income generator. Like I can say, and I do say no to a lot of things when it comes to my side projects because I don't need the money. Like I have a full-time job. And so I can really protect my side projects and my personal brand and say no to a lot of things and like keep it fun rather than putting that pressure on it to be like my earnings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I was thinking about like your content, especially because a lot of it is like, okay, I'm going to talk about like how me and my team run this part of the process that we do, or like how we do feedback on my team and like stuff like that, which helps these other people, right? So I understand how it's like, okay, if I'm not doing those things, what am I going to talk about? I'm sure you would have loads of things to talk about, but I totally understand that. I'm kind of on this, I guess, path at the moment of talking about and opening up like how creative business looks so different for so many different people, right? Like working full time on your creative business, like works for some people. It doesn't work for other people. Some people start these side hustles because they just want to and they love it. Some people do it because they kind of have to and COVID's happened or they got furloughed or whatever. So they have to start these side hustles. Like creative business doesn't just look like one thing. So I love hearing like, how your business almost is like structured in a way, is awesome. And so one of your side hustles you mentioned is your YouTube channel. I'm a huge fan of your YouTube channel. And I think like, I'm just like always super impressed that like, I remember when you were like, I think I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And then you just like tried it and committed to it. And now it's grown into this like amazing, massive thing with so many people who are so engaged in it. So I'm, just always like, oh my God, Fem, you did so good.
Oh, thanks.
So tell me a little bit about like how and why did you decide to start this YouTube channel in the first place?
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of blogging, as I mentioned, and I just really didn't enjoy it. I didn't like writing. It just wasn't the format that felt right for me. And especially blogging about design, which is such a visual medium. And I wanted to like teach design. And it was just getting really tedious to try and do that in a written format and like write these tutorials. And so I was like, maybe this medium and format is like better if it's like a video style rather than me blogging and writing about design. Like, why don't I make it a bit more immersive? And so that's kind of what initially kicked it off, that I wanted to teach in a more visual, engaging way. And I felt like video was a really obvious answer to that. So that was one thing. I think another thing was that there was, at least back then, I felt like there was a lack of like people on YouTube teaching UX and product design. There's a lot of like graphic design, like visual design, digital design, but not really many people going into the nitty gritty of like UX and product design. So I was like, okay, that feels like a gap in an area. And then also like at that time I had already kind of built a pretty solid audience and I was getting a lot of questions about design or like their career or like how to create their portfolio or like career advice. And I was starting to answer the same question over and over and over again, right? And then I started to realize like, what if I just made a video addressing this topic? And then anytime someone asks me about it, I can just send them the link to the video. So it was also a bit of a selfish, like, this is going to save me a lot more time. And so that's initially what kicked it off, really, was a combination of those things. And I think I still have some of those motivators today a year and a half later or 2 years later, I think. But yeah, I think my channel has been growing a lot, especially in the last 12 months. And now I'm just really excited to turn it into this resource educational repository where I can like help people become product designers and help them level up in their career as well throughout their path in design.
Yeah, amazing. And I was going to ask you a bit about this because you said like you had an audience kind of already that you could sort of bring over to your YouTube channel and be like, hey, come on over here. So do you think that that helped you obviously in like getting your YouTube channel started? And then what do you think is it that's helped grow it so kind of infinitely since then?
Yeah. So I definitely think having that audience that I started building up from like the blogging, the newsletter, the podcast to eventually launching the YouTube channel, definitely having that audience already was very, very helpful in terms of like kicking off my channel and like having an audience to even announce it to, you know, instead of like announcing it to like my family. So that definitely has been helpful. And it's exponential too, because as I launch and introduce new things, like the launch is usually with success because I have an existing audience. So like, for example, I started mentoring a year ago and I launched my mentoring services. I'm like consistently booked out. And I've had people ask me like, how did you get so booked out? And I'm like, well, I have an existing audience on other platforms. And so like I drive people to my mentoring services. So yes, having an audience is definitely very, very helpful. And your other question was around the growth in the last 12 months, right? This is funny. I don't know, but my guess is that COVID had something to do with it because I definitely had some spikes in March and April of 2020 when I think people were at home, they didn't have much to do, consuming more content. So I definitely saw a spike then. And I think I just continued riding that train. Like I saw that I was getting spikes and I was like, okay, people are checking out my channel. I'm going to like produce more videos and be consistent and show up and talk about content that's relevant to the problems or the challenges that these people are going through right now. And so I've just been riding that train a little bit since then. And it seems to have been working well. I think like listening to your audience is also a really, really big, important thing. Like I could create videos about things I care about, but if nobody else cares about it, then nobody's going to watch it. And so I think having that audience and having them be engaging and listening to their questions and what's important to them and what their challenges are, and then addressing that with my content, it's like a self-fulfilling cycle, right? So I think being conscious of that and being consistent has really helped in the last 12 months.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, what you just said about that, like listening to your audience and then kind of hearing their questions, answering their questions. Like it's so true, right? That doing that simple thing of like listening, creating helpful content is like so powerful. And so with your channel, you have done like quite a few partnerships, right? With like software and people who support your channel, and you likewise support their product and share that with your audience. This is something that we haven't really talked about on the podcast before because like I don't have a lot of people who I know who have done that quite a bit. So I'm interested in like how you kind of got into doing that. Like did somebody reach out to you? Did you reach out to some of those people? How did that kind of get started?
Yeah, this started pretty organically where companies started reaching out to me. I don't know if it's like you reach some magic threshold on YouTube that people start noticing you or like, because it all seemed to happen around, it started happening at the same time. Like it wasn't like one company reached out to me. It was like a few started reaching out to me. And I was like, this is interesting that people are starting to notice. So I'm not sure if that's something to do with the YouTube algorithm or something else, but it started pretty organically where they started reaching out to me and I started to realize like, oh, maybe this is like an interesting opportunity. And I can like teach these design tools and, make a little bit of money on the side at the same time and learn about these different, ways that I could use different tools in my design process. So it kind of like felt like a good match and a good fit. That said, I do get people reaching out to me wanting to collaborate that have nothing to do with design on my channel. I think I once had like a jewelry company reach out to me, or like a tea company. And like, I love tea, but I'm not a channel about tea. And so like, you only see like the 5% of opportunities that I say yes to, and I say no to a lot of them. It's also obviously really important to me that I partner with brands and tools that like I like, or I use, or I'm familiar with, or I enjoy, or think would be valuable for my audience. I'm definitely not in it for the money. That's another benefit, I guess, of like having the full-time job, is I can say no to these things and be really picky and be really, really choosy as well. So yeah, it kind of came organically. And I'm also very grateful for, in addition to these kind of one-off like sponsored videos I do, I also have a channel sponsor, which is SuperPair, which is actually the platform I use for my mentoring services.
Yeah.
They were really, kind and wanted to like keep supporting me in other ways. And so eventually we decided on this like channel sponsorship. So that's been really nice to have a brand sponsor with me that really aligns with my values, and that I use like multiple times a week to help mentor other designers. And so that's really nice to have that as well.
Yeah, that's so incredible that they were like, yeah, we want to keep supporting like you long term, not just this one-off thing that benefits us, but like, a long-term like relationship and partnership. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have any kind of advice or lessons, I guess, about people who maybe are just getting started with doing those partnerships? Maybe somebody's reached out and asked them and they're like, oh my God, I don't know. You got any advice or thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think I'm at a stage where like, if my reaction is like, oh, I don't know, then like it's immediately a no. Like I have to be really excited. It has to be like a heck yes for me to like say yes to the opportunity. So I watch out for that signal. Like, how do I react? Like, do I react like, oh my gosh, wow, this is such a like, wow, I'm so excited. This is such a perfect like alignment. Or am I like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure if my audience, if I start doubting it, then for me, it's immediately like a no. So I don't know how practical that advice is, but for me, that's been really helpful to like make sure that like use that gut check to make sure that I'm aligning with brands that I'm really excited about and that I think would be beneficial for my audience.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's great advice. I think you feel it in your gut, right? I feel like, or maybe like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah. Because you also don't want it to be like a burden. Like if you say yes and then like, you don't want it to be a process that you don't enjoy and that you put off or you don't look forward to, especially when it's like a pain arrangement that you have. So you want to make sure that it's aligned with your values.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, awesome. I feel like I could like keep talking to you forever and ever and asking you. And there's so many other parts of your brand and your business that we haven't even touched on, like mentoring and coaching and stuff that you're doing. Also, you and I worked on your like visual branding refresh together.
Yes, shout out to you because you did an amazing job. If you go and check out my YouTube channel, Holly did all of the visual design and branding for it, and it looks amazing. I love it.
And it was so fun to do. It was such a fun project. Yay. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Oh, of course.
But there are, so many amazing things we could continue to talk about. But I just want to know, before we wrap things up, when you think about like, I guess, branding your passion, and building your personal brand, what is kind of one piece of advice or one lesson that you've learned that you think that would be helpful for other creatives to know?
Yeah, I think my advice would be to be your authentic self. I feel like this is something I still am not perfect at. I have to continue reminding myself of this as well, because it's really easy to get hung up on what other people are doing and like their success and their different strategies. And like, you're like, oh, do I have to do that too? And, oh, they're like super funny in their things. And like, do I have to be super funny? But maybe I'm just not a funny person. You don't want to like try and force something that just doesn't feel right or doesn't feel authentically you. And so that would be my advice. And like I said, it's something I still have to remind myself of too sometimes. But I think as long as you're being authentic, your audience is going to like you for you. And that's ultimately what you want at the end of the day, because that's going to be a more engaging, a more kind, more thoughtful audience and lead to more success.
Yeah, 100%, and be a lot more sustainable for you to just be yourself the whole time rather than trying to, be somebody else forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful, beautiful advice to wrap up on. So thank you so much. Do you want to tell the people where they can find you and what you've got going on right now that we want to plug and get people to come over and support you with?
Yeah, so you can go to femke.design. That's FEMKE.design. That's my website, and I have links there to pretty much everything. You can find my Instagram there, my Twitter, my YouTube channel. It's all linked there. So let's just keep it with the one link and you'll find it all. If you want to check out the podcast, though, that is designlife.fm, and you can listen to the show there. We have 220 episodes, which is kind of crazy.
A small backlog.
Just a small backlog to get through, but there's a lot of good stuff on there. I highly recommend checking that out if you're interested in side projects and your design career.
100%. And your website, which you just talked about, is going to have, you're working on redesigning it, right? With the new brand will be on there shortly.
It's a year late. So my apologies, because you did this beautiful new brand for me about a year ago, and it's taking me that long to update my website, but it's coming and I'm very excited about it and it's going to look great. I don't know when this episode is going to be out, but there's a chance that the new brand might be out by then. So we'll see.
Exciting. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Fem. This has been super, super awesome. And I'm sure everybody listening is going to learn heaps from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and good luck. All the people listening, like, keep doing your thing. Honestly, I know that sometimes it's like a grind and it's hard and you're like, is anyone listening? Does anyone care? Is any of this worth it? But it is, and keep going. So that's my takeaway for your audience.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brand Your Passion and choosing to spend some time with me learning about branding, business, and all things creativity. You can find more episodes just like this one at blackandwhitestudios.nz/brandyourpassion. If you liked this one, you can tap that subscribe button so that you're notified about every new episode. And if you've got a spare second, I would love it if you could leave a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. I would love to hear from you and hear about how you're enjoying the podcast. If there were some helpful goodies in this episode for you, it would mean the world to me if you could screenshot your podcast player on your phone right now, hop over to Instagram or Twitter and tag me at Black and White Studios. That's at BLCKWHT Studios. By subscribing and reviewing and sharing, you're helping me to reach more creators just like you so that together we can make the world a more creative place, one brand at a time. I really can't achieve this mission without you, so your support means the world. I'll talk to you in the next episode, but until then, keep creating.